you all for being here, for showing up. I really appreciate it. And I know Mark does as well.
Oh, for sure. I was so surprised. I thought we would get like 3 or 4 or 5, you know. Come in. Well, I thought I would get 3 or 4 or 5. I knew Linda would probably bring in a few more. No.
Well, I thought I'd get more than 3.
No, I do appreciate it, Linda.
But
I do.
It's great that you all came into the room. But
so you have thinking too?
Oh, yeah. But see, Sarah knows that's my jokes. Those are my jokes. And they don't go over well. But I like them. I laugh at my jokes. That was an attempt at humor. And you may hear another bad attempt later in the...
Can you do an Ollie and an Ole and
No, I don't know those at all. I don't know those at all. But you know, when I was up at La Conner, the funny thing, and you know that... what's that restaurant where, you know, you come in and meet? There's that big restaurant up on the highway. They have oldie jokes.
No, really?
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. They have oldie jokes in there. I thought, well, that's where Joe gets his jokes. So, anyhow, I don't do those jokes.
So, how do you want to start?
Oh.
To shout? Huh? What?
I was saying shout, shout.
Okay, so speak up then.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
how do you want to start, Mark?
well, well, Linda. Well, you know what, Linda? I just thought I might say some thoughts I had, what I'd hoped to cover, and you could see if they aligned with what you were thinking, and we could go from there.
Good idea.
All right. Well, this is an interesting thing for me because, you know, this is like really a special moment. This isn't where I was going to start, but it just occurred to me. In 1982 is when I heard this understanding and really caught on to it. And for 2 years, I met with Linda and George and a group of us at her house. And Linda directed me to listening. She directed me. She had wonderful points about listening. I was excited about what I knew, so I just taught people what I knew. Thought creates your feelings. She helped me see, well, you better listen a bit so you know whether to find something else beside that one thing, you know? Or at least be guided by that. So she helped me, and since then it's just developed. It's just continuing to learn how to listen. So I'm really happy to be here with you to do this talk because I can remember sitting in your house and you pointing that out to me. And it's grown since then. But I had a couple of things I wanted to share. One is what you have going for you when you're called on to share the principles. And that would be like answering questions or making a presentation, or you're with a client and they ask you something or you notice something. What do you have going for you that will help you know how to answer the question and be right on about it? So I wanted to speak to that. And then I wanted to speak to, well, how do I get there? And I wanted to share with you some of the, for me, pitfalls that I have experienced, even before coming here with clients. Some of the pitfalls where you could go astray from this kind of guidance system we have. And then see if there's any questions.
And I want to add one thing. I wanted to add one thing is that it's really, I would like, and I know Mark shares this, we'd like to get across to you how easy it is. How easy it is to work with people and teach them the principles. So easy. It's like falling off a log. No, really. It really is. But we make it hard because of how we think about it. Okay? And there's a way in which I found, and I'll talk more about this, Mandu, I found that when I'm not thinking about myself and I'm in service to the person in front of me, I can even make it simpler than that. When I'm more interested in them than I am in me,
Yeah.
when I'm more interested in them and then how I'm doing, and how I'm looking, how am I looking now? And how am I saying it now? Is it good? Did I say it right? What would Sid think of what I said? Or what about Elsie? What would Elsie think? Now when I just stop it, and I'm like in service and I'm thinking about the person in front of me, it's so easy. It is so easy. It is so easy because you're just connected with them.
Yeah.
And the connection in that feeling of we're all the same, in that feeling of oneness, in that energy, it just feeds your thought, just feeds your stuff. And it's so much fun because you really kind of get to say anything you want that occurs to you. That's helpful to them because it's not about you, it's about them. So to me, it's so much fun to help someone. Or, that's the wrong word in a way because it's really an illusion that you're helping them. It's really that they're getting woken up to what they already know, because they do, because they are the principles. That's the other thing, the confidence. The people are the principles, and you're just a part of this conversation that wakes them up. But
Oh, that was great. Oh my goodness, that was wonderful. That was wonderful. Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's really it. When you called me, when Linda called me to do a talk, and it was just after a presentation I did at the Innate Health Conference in Tikkun. And what surprised me was not so much my presentation, but that people who are experienced in teaching the principles said, you put on a clinic about how to answer questions. And I tell you what it really was is what you're talking about. I call it listening beyond yourself. Listening beyond yourself, because it really is that you want to find that connection you have, which is mind, to the intelligence of all life, and that connection you have with your audience, because we are all part of mind. You have the knowledge in you that we're pouring out to you through this whole conference. And when you listen to people with knowing that about them, it makes it easy. Because all you're looking for, in a way, is, well, why haven't they seen it yet? You get kind of curious about, well, we just had a nice conversation and so forth. Do you see anything about thought there? Oh, no, no, I don't. Well, okay. Well, let's go back to the drawing board. It's nothing, you see, it's nothing. It doesn't matter. You just go back to the drawing board, which means you go back inside to that intelligence you are, that connection. The feeling is really what it is, because I don't know how to go to the intelligence, but I get the feeling of it, and that guides me. That guides me. So in that talk, they asked this question, now isn't trauma in the cells of your body? Isn't it held in the cells of your body? And then they said this great neuroscientist has been showing research that trauma is in the cells of your body. So I heard that. Being human, I said, oh my God. I don't know anything about that. Honestly, I had that thought. That's what Linda, as we were prepping, is saying. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're going to have those thoughts. You don't want to make anything of them when you have it. So I knew I couldn't follow that thinking, or I would be a blubbering idiot. I couldn't follow that. I knew that. So I had to go in, get quiet, and wait. So they kept talking, and all of a sudden, what came at first was, well, you know how the principles talk about trauma. You know that trauma experience now is just people getting engaged in their memory, which is thought. That came to me. And I started to talk from there. And things kept flowing. Humor came up, see? And so you have this wonderful intelligence that you are a part of that will guide you through answering questions.
And the thing is, it's true. See, the thing is, it's true. And the thing is, it's true.
Yeah.
And it's practical. It's a real practical thing. It's like you're with someone and you're connected, and you get a flurry of, say, like I get like Mark, where they'll ask me a question, I'll go, I don't know the answer to that. I should know the answer. I don't know the answer. And wait a minute. Wrong direction. I'm going into my insecure thinking. Wait a minute. And see, the only thing that makes working with people difficult for me is my own impatience. Because see, I want that new thought from the connection. I want that now. I don't really want to wait for it. And I don't want my insecure thinking coming up first. Right? But, hey, I'm a human being, and that's what happens. So it's like, and also, the other thing is old thinking that worked. Right?
Yeah.
All your old metaphors that worked. Right? Like I have this turkey baster metaphor that I used to use, where I would say to someone, if I could take a turkey baster and suck all the thinking out of your mind, then you'd be, in a really nice feeling, right? Well, when I had the insight to have that as a metaphor for clearing your mind, it was great. It worked out great. But then at some point, it just kind of died.
Like December 1st, the Thanksgiving turkey was like, look.
And so it's like a lot of times I'll have my old thinking that will come up that worked before. My old metaphors, my really clever, examples and stories, and then they die. And it's like, and then I want something new. But the thing is, what I really mean about it being practical is it's true. You get connected to the deeper intelligence of life in a feeling, and you find it in a feeling. And it's like, all of a sudden, it's like new stuff comes, new thought comes. It's like, and sometimes it's very simple and very mundane, and the person goes, you got to be kidding me. Did you just hear what you said? And I say, what did I say? And it was like just some offhand remark that I happened to say that came out of my connection, the feeling I had with them. And it works. You never know what's going to work. But it's like, what I find is that I say to myself a lot, wait for it. I'm always saying, wait for it. Because someone will say something and it's like I have, a series of old thinking, and I go, no. And then there's nothing, and I'm like sitting there.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this. Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And I thought, that's a really good answer. I don't know is a really good answer, because right now I don't know, but you know what? At some point, I will get a thought that will hit me upside my head, and I will know. Because we're wired up that way. We're wired up for new thought if we wait for it. And we don't get all caught up in the stuff we already know. And then our insecurity is about, like, maybe I don't know. So, you stay out of, it's like Mark and I think we've done this so much that we just kind of learn to stay out of all that stuff. I mean, it comes up, but we just kind of don't go with it. Go over here. And we wait for it. And see, that's what makes it really easy. It's like, you don't know until you know, but you know something will come, and that's what makes it so easy. Can you guys relate to what we're saying? Is this like helpful?
Yes. Well, Linda, I call that, same thing you're talking about, I call that getting quiet. And it's...
Oh, no, it's not that simple.
No. Well,
really?
Sometimes it doesn't look that simple, but what it comes from is a trust of what Linda's saying, a trust of what we are. We are the principles in action. And you are this intelligence, and it's not going to let you down. It may not come as soon as you'd like it, but if you go listen to it, your clients will give you permission to take your time. I was doing a group once for Kaiser when I was working for Kaiser. About 35 people. I was talking about the principles in relationship. It was going well. And I noticed if I went and said a few more things, it would be a wrap. It would be like Linda said. It would be stuff that worked last week, and I got really good group out of it. But I knew. See, I heard, very quickly I heard, this won't work. Well, the bad news was I didn't know what would. I had no clue what would come, what to say. So I got quiet. See, I learned early on to get quiet when you got these distracting thoughts, or you think it's not going anywhere. Get quiet. Get quiet to me just meant clear out and try to hear that intelligence. So I'm there in front of the room, and all of a sudden, it's like I realize the thought comes from that intelligence. You've been quiet a long time. You better let the group know what you're doing, because they may be like wondering what's going on here, This guy have a stroke or what? So I said that. So I used that thought, which occurred through our connection to intelligence. See, I didn't think the thought, Mark Howard, it came. I didn't have a toolbox I went to. It occurred, okay? So I tell the group, here's what's going on. I was going to go and make this point, but it wouldn't have been good for you. It was good for the group last week. Now, I'll tell you the point if you'd like, but I'm getting quiet so I could get a point that's right for you. Is that okay? Everybody said, go for it. So if people know what you're about, they'll give you permission. And lo and behold, the minute that, once they said go for it, up it came. Now, it wasn't anything I knew. I was doing a whole new course on the principles and relationships. It was just coming out from that intelligence. So don't be afraid if you feel you're off to get quiet and find that, let that intelligence show you where to go. And it's simple stuff. That was kind of a pretty big thing that I saw happen, but it's simple stuff like just asking somebody a question. They'll come to me, you know, you better ask them about that because it's not making any sense to you. Or you better ask them to be quiet for a bit. Or you better check in to see if they're with you. So all these things are there for you without you having to do anything. And for me, I call that being quiet inside. So when I present or when I'm with clients, I don't have anything I'm going to point them toward. It's the connection that starts to guide the conversation. You're just hanging out and you're having a conversation. And for me, one of the things that helps me is I just start to wonder sometimes. I get curious about what they're saying to me. How does that make sense to you? And there we are, we're talking, and that connection is helping us. And sometimes they'll even answer their question because of the connection. So I said, aren't you good? You hired me, you answered your own question. I don't say that too much because they won't pay me. So that's how I see it, Linda. That's that quiet.
And it's surprising what you learn. Like, I'm surprised what occurs to me.
Yeah.
And I like, wow, that's good. You know, I like that. I never thought of that. That's new for me too. So it's kind of a dual learning. It's like I'm learning and they're learning. Like, oh wow, that's I like that. But it's the oddest feeling because it's like from nothing comes something. But that's the way it is, isn't it? From nothing comes something. Because it's like you're always going to have another thought, whether it's a, you know, personal thought or an impersonal thought or a sad thought or a profound thought. I mean, you're always going to have another thought. From nothing comes something. Because the principles are always in motion in you and me. And you know how I said it, working with people is easy because it's like falling off a log. Because, and I'm going to go back to what I talked about this morning is, you know, when I saw that my clients were the same as me, it took such a burden off of me. Because I realized I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to fix them or cure them or make them hear or make them better. They just didn't realize that they were healthy. And all they had to do was realize they were healthy. I mean, and if I could realize that I was healthy, which I realized from talking with Sid Banks or listening to him, if I could realize that, anybody could. Anybody could. So it's like that confidence in the health in people, in the fact that we're all spiritual beings making up thought, making up a reality. And as our level of understanding evolves, we do make up a healthier reality. We do. Or in the sense that we start to ignore what's not healthy with regard to our thinking. That's what we just do. People do that. That's what they do. Because they want to feel better. And thought is connected to feeling, and as your level goes up, you realize that, and you go, oh no, I don't want to go over there. I want to go over here. I don't want to think about that. That makes me feel bad. I don't want to do it. So as people's level goes up, they think differently. They think in more positively, more optimistically, less pessimistically, more healthfully. And it's within us. It's like Sid said, one of the most profound things he said that I heard was, people are put on this earth to go find themselves. And what the point is to find your true nature. And your true nature will show you the illusionary nature of your separate reality. And that you don't have to pay it any mind unless you want to. Play in it. And sometimes it's fun to play in your thinking. Why not? And sometimes it's not so much fun to play in your thinking. But And this is the way I'm talking to you is the way I talk to my clients, because the way I talk to you is the way I talk to my clients. Because we all know this. It's just a matter of, okay, wake up. You know, it's so funny because the first time it's okay if I...
Oh, yeah.
The first time I met Sid, he looks at me and he says to me, "You don't have to be frightened." And I'm like, what? And I actually backed up. And I was thinking, he saw me. And then I backed up some more. And then he started coming at me. And he was like, no, you don't have to be frightened. And I'm like, how'd you see that? And then he says, it's just a thought. You don't have to. It's just a thought. And at the time, I was quite offended. It offended me that he did that. But it stayed with me in a visual memory of it stayed with me. And it comes to mind every so often, that scenario, that memory. And every time it comes to mind, I learn from it. I learn deeper and deeper and deeper that fear is just a thought. Isn't that funny? And it was such a gift for him to say that to me. I mean, it was so harsh at the time in my little self. But it was such a gift. Because where he was coming from is like, you don't have to be afraid of life. It's just, you're just thinking fear, and you don't have to be afraid of life.
So he got directed. He got directed to share that with you. Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
He
I
got
couldn't
the same
believe that
thing.
he came at me like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But it was really good.
Yeah.
And I was so...
That's right.
Later, I was so grateful.
Yeah.
Later,
Yeah.
I was so grateful.
Yeah. Well, what we're talking about, you know, one of the things that helped me so much about what we're talking about is like you'll see this on maybe some of the Sydney Banks DVDs, but he talks about how when he's when he's teaching or presenting, that he's there. He's, these are my words. This isn't how he says it, but he is being guided by the intelligence of mind, right? The intelligence. Now, what he says a lot is, when he said this, when I teach, this is him, when I was teaching, I would say words, I would use words I never heard, I never learned. And at the end, I would go and ask my late wife, Barb, were those the right words? And they were. Now, that's speaking to the power you have, what you are and what you are a part of. When you're in the role, connected to another human being or a group, and wanting to help them see the nature of experience, how the principles create the experience they're coming to you to get help with. That's the power you have. That you go beyond your form, and you go beyond your brain, because he didn't have 3-syllable words in his brain. See, so that's what we're trying to speak to. And when you can see it's not you, then you could have all this fun. You could do all kinds of things. You could say anything to people. And the other equalizer for me, being trained as a clinical psychologist, I was this expert who knew how to categorize people. When I understood the principles and that everybody had this within them, I was the same as them. Just as Linda's saying, I'm in the human condition like you. So I tell people all these stories all the time about me, in this human condition. And it helps them because, we're aligned together and they know Well, if he could screw up like that, I haven't even done that as serious as that. So I'm always telling, for me, that's what comes up. For other people, metaphors come up. See, it's different. I got to tell you this story. When I was first learning how to teach, and I just met George and Linda, and George was doing a professional seminar. This is how lost I was about not realizing I was part of mind, okay? He is a master of metaphors. He's got one metaphor after the other. So I'm thinking, I'm sitting there in the professional seminar, and I'm thinking, oh my God, to be like him, I've got to go learn how to do metaphors. That's what I created. Yeah, I created it. It was so much a reality, honest to God. I went to a bookstore to look for a book on how to do metaphors. Well, one, you see the nature of thought right there, don't you? Right. How it could drive you to do silly things, which then looked important. But what woke me up is to see that's how it comes through him. It's going to come, the intelligence is going to speak through me. It's going to create thoughts for me that's going to be different. And for me, it's more personal stories come up. I don't know. I'm still trying to ask it to bring up metaphors, but it won't do it. I was even prepping for this, and I think, can I think of a metaphor? And I couldn't think of a metaphor. So I just want you to, what I mean by this is I want you to see what you have going for you. I want you to appreciate it, because if you sit there, you could do anything. You could teach anybody. And all that's happened is, if you lost the feeling of that, all that's happened is you got caught up in your own personal thinking. No biggie. You just get that out of the way and come back. When you come back, you're back in it again. It's that easy, as Linda said. It's that simple. And people will, when they can feel this about you, so they'll just interact. And there are times where I really said something that it was off. And I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. Please, let's go. Can we go start all over again? Because I was off. They said, oh, you weren't off. That really helped me, but go ahead, start all over again if you want to. So people will give you all of this freedom to be yourself in the human condition with them. And they'll hear that you have something that you might help them wake up to. So that's the great equalizer, is what you started out with, that we're all the same. We're all the same. So given that I've had so much training in categorizing, I'm sitting with somebody and I'm tired. It's the end of the day. I want to get home, and they're difficult. And up pops, oh, this is a borderline personality disorder. Oh man, you're in it now. You're not getting home tonight. It happens. All right, it happens. But I let it go. I just let that go. You can't live in that. You can't live in that. It'll take you down. And it's wrong. It's limiting. So you let it go. You've got your own thoughts that come in that kind of distract you or get in your way. You just let it go. Gather yourself. For me, it's go back, get quiet. Oh, sorry about that. I left the scene a little bit there. Go ahead. Tell me what you were saying. So all I want to do then is get connected. You see? So that's going to happen. It's one of the nice things that in our prepping you talked about, how things like we're in the human condition, even in the role of teaching or clinically or whatever it is that we do, coaching or whatever. So you're going to get your personal thoughts. And you just start to see you don't make anything about it, because you're human. You're human. If you make something about it, you're lost, huh? Not only are you in that limiting thought, but now you're even getting on yourself for it. It's like you're not going to be doing too well. Let me tell you, I'm talking from experience. So you just let it go. And you let it go and you get quiet. You come back inside to the wisdom in you. And you wait. And sometimes when I'm waiting, I help myself by having my client talk. So I say, just keep talking about that. Just say more about that, And that kind of just helps me.
You know, it's funny. I do the exact same thing as Mark. When I have a so-called difficult client, the next thought I have is they're borderline. And it's gotten so bad that my partner, Barb Patterson, who talked the last session, it's like she can see the frustration and she just goes, yeah, I bet they're a borderline. It's like, I don't take that, it's just a thought, I don't take it seriously, it's just what I think about when I get, frustrated, that I blame the client.
Yeah,
because they're borderline.
that's it.
But I don't, it's just, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter as long as I don't take myself seriously. Doesn't matter what I think about as long as I don't take it seriously. And the thing is, what Mark said about, I love that the point you made about, you want to teach this from yourself in your own way. You don't want to teach like anybody else. Even though we both, Mark and I, see difficult clients as borderline, we didn't. We had no idea.
Wait, don't mark me like that. Once in a while. It's not an everyday thing.
Come on. Get in my boat. Anyway, that's the beauty of the teachers in this understanding is that everybody teaches differently in their own way, but you can see the thread. You can always see the thread of where they're going, which is their understanding of the principles, their understanding of thought, their understanding of consciousness, their understanding of mind, and their way of articulating it. And it's going to be different. It's going to be just a little bit different than everybody else, and that's the beauty, is we all get to teach it in our own way, but we're teaching the same point, the same understanding. So it becomes fascinating to listen to people because you get to hear it in a new, different way. So never try to teach like anyone. Teach like yourself. And that is when you get connected to that feeling, you just say what occurs to you and see how it works. And if you don't know, if you can't feel it, that it's working, you ask, hey, how's that working for you? And then you get some input and you go, oh, I guess they're not picking up on this. Okay, let me try something else. Or you'll get, wow, they're really picking up on this. You think we should take some questions?
Sure.
How you doing? So we're going to do some intake like we would with a client, some sampling. So how you doing? Any questions? What are you hearing? What are you hearing? Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I have a client, a prospective client. Well, I have a client just before we came. She said she wants to sign up for a package. And I talked to a couple people about this already, but the thing that freaks me out is I already think she's a very wise person. Mm-hmm. So why is she coming to me? I checked with it in my spirit, and it's going to be cool. Whatever it is, it's as it's supposed to be. So I hope that you can extrapolate more on that because
Well, you know, I've had people that have come to me wanting help, and I've had the same thought. What are they coming to me for? They seem like a really wise person. So I say to them, what are you coming to me for? You see, I do. I say that to them. I say, why are you coming? You seem like you got it together. You seem like a very, what's the deal with that? Help me understand why you think you need my help when I think you're doing fine. And I love to hear what they say. And that's the beginning of a conversation, which who knows where it will end up.
Here's another thing to that. I thought that when people who are masters in teaching the three principles said they were coming to this talk, I got into that thinking. What do I have to offer? Okay? So here's the other, I just wanted to share that piece, but here's the other piece. You're thinking before you get there. See, when you get there and you get into this listening, you're going to see. Because what that person is seeing in you, you're going to see what they need. See, so you're thinking about it as yourself. I was thinking about it like Mark Howard. But when I get here and get in the feeling of the intelligence of mind, that's where the meat is. So I could think about it beforehand and scare the bejeebies out of me. Think I don't have anything to offer. And Mark Howard then has nothing to offer. But when you get here and you get connected, you'll see, it'll come to you. The intelligence will tell you. So I would just add that to what Linda's saying, because what Linda's saying is really important to know too. That's what I do a lot of in inquiring about things I get puzzled about. See, you're puzzled. So I ask about that, then I listen deep into this listening, and that gives me something. But I also wanted to help you see that we do the same thing. We think about ourselves before we're even in that spirit. And it isn't what you think about yourself that's going to do it. It's not going to do it. It's going to be when you get in that relationship and you get connected to the intelligence that you are both connected to. That's what's going to do it. See, so you're not going to know what you have available to offer till you get in there. See? And if nothing comes, then you could say, you know, I don't have, but something's going to come to you.
I've done that lots of times when I'd be sitting there and nothing would come, and I'd just say, nothing's coming unless you get quiet. And then when I was done being quiet, she just answered her own question. So yeah, I get it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, back there.
How do you help a client who's in physical pain and using the three principles with someone who's in physical pain? So if you know, it's really not their thought necessarily, is they're in physical pain. Have you worked with?
I've worked with people in physical pain.
Well, I would say, you know, it's probably the same answer. Here's the answer. The answer is you have to get a sense of what that means to the person. See, you have to get a sense of what they're using thought and consciousness to make of being in pain. So before you could see how to be of service, you have to get a connection to what are they making of that? What's that about? How is it that they're looking at that could add to the experience of pain itself? A lot of people, this again, so now I'm just going back to knowledge. A lot of people carry around a lot of tormented thinking about being in pain. And that just adds to the experience of it, you know, it makes it much more conscious. A lot of people get depressed behind being in pain. So when you look to help someone with something, you want to be able to make a connection to see what they're making of it, so you could know what you might teach or how you might intervene.
And I'm going to answer you a different way, okay? I have a lot of thinking about what it means for someone to be in physical pain. And I have a lot of thinking about whether the principles will work or not with somebody who's in physical pain. So when I worked with somebody who was in physical pain, I had a lot of thinking about that I had to get out from under before I could actually help them.
Yeah.
And it was all my thinking about, oh, I wonder if this will work. I don't know enough about physical pain. So there was all of this stuff that I had to, you know, and just, like Mark said, is be with them and just listen to them and like see how they related to it, see what it meant to them, and see how I could be of help. But first, I had a lot of thinking, oh no, I don't know that the principles could work in this particular. But that was on me, see?
Yeah. Well, I just love us talking together. My goodness, this is just wonderful. But I hope I can say this right, because see, it's not a good start, is it? I really want to get it, because it was really nice what you said. It's the same thing that happened to me in that presentation. I didn't know what the principles said about memory of trauma in cells. I didn't know, so I was getting myself insecure, thinking I had to know that first. See, I had to know that first before I could help somebody. You see? But as I traveled, I'll tell you, it was a long answer. As I kept trying to look for the answer, you know, things came up, humor came up, another point came up, but I still wasn't getting the answer. And I went back, and what she then said gave me an answer, but it was completely different. It had nothing to do with trauma of cells in the body. What happened was she said, but I keep trying to synthesize the principles. And I realized you can't synthesize the principles. So that was really the question. So until I got clear of that insecure thought of, oh man, I didn't study that chapter around the principles, you know?
Yeah.
And then the intelligence guided me.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of sharing with you. Until you get that, and what you were saying too, and then the intelligence will guide you.
It's like, don't let your thinking stop you. Is that kind of what we're saying? Is because when people ask those kind of questions that we're like, oh no, it's a big one, you know? I know, I didn't read that chapter. And I don't really know that much about pain. And it's like all that thinking stops you. Because there's a human question in there. There's a human answer in there. If you stick with it and just keep going, like Mark said, you just keep going and keep going and keep going until, yeah.
I thought it might be helpful to share something as you're speaking. But what I find myself doing more and more and more is waiting for that click. So what I do is I keep asking questions, or I just keep listening. And all of a sudden there's this juncture where the client and I meet. And I feel it's like a click. And then all of a sudden I know this is the time to speak or say something. So
Yeah.
to me, it's finding that juncture, that meeting place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of, that's it.
No, I've had that experience of that click. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's just, to me, it's keep asking questions, keep trying to understand, just listening, and you're there in that meeting place.
I found that I have much more thinking about the waiting part than you know what I'm supposed to know, which then is like a whole nother path that's getting in my way.
Yeah, I know.
Can't wait this long,
Yeah,
right?
this is too long.
Yeah.
Well, look at that. This is how I worked it out for me over the years. Look at that. And I say this with all respect for being human and being not knowing where to go, because I've been there many, many times. And so have the practitioners that I've mentored and supervised. So here's the thing that occurred to me. All right, here's the thing. You could make up something at that time, or you could wait. What do you think would be the most valuable thing to do for the human being trying to understand the nature of the principles? See, that's what I woke up one day with that what is it, that thing they go,
Epiphany?
no. Oh, yeah, it's epiphany, yeah. But you know how they say, well, anyhow, I'm going to forget that because I don't know what I meant there. See, I didn't wait long enough. I'm sorry. I'm throwing you off. I didn't wait long. But that's all. That's all I wanted to share with you. Look at it. Look at it logically, you know. You've been blessed. You've seen something about the nature of the principles, the nature of thought. Mm-hmm. You really have. And you can offer this to someone. And you'll offer it right if you hear something out of that unknown, rather than go for the best idea you've had so far this week. Now, that best idea is good, of course, but if it doesn't come to you from that click, then it's a wrap.
And our client will know it.
And the client will feel it. Yes, they will. They will. They'll feel the difference, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So then they won't be
So I just wanted to share with you how it came to me to have the respect for waiting. And I have fun with that, with clients and so forth, you know. I just have fun saying, I say the same thing that I say to you. What would you rather have? You know, the good news is I could tell you something that worked for somebody last week. The bad news is we may have to wait for something that'll work for you. You know, what do you want, you know? And they always allow me to wait.
If I can comment, it's too funny because when she asked the question about pain, I thought, I better listen for this answer because I'm going to remember this when I'm asked the same question. But I just realized that you probably give, as you said, a different answer every time.
Yes.
You can't give the same answer every time because
Yeah.
It's not
either clicks or it
applicable.
doesn't click.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's beautiful. You see? There you go. You just had a realization
And
right there.
And the thing is, I have to admit to you, not to anybody else, I'm just going to say this to you. Sometimes my self-image gets the better of me and I just talk. And I know I'm coming off with something that's just not helpful, but I'm just going to go ahead. Because I'm getting self-conscious about waiting, so I'm just going to go ahead.
Yeah.
And I know I'm doing it. But what I also know is I'll straighten out. Is that I'll go ahead and do it, and then I'll come back, and I'll get that click, and then I'll say it in a way that's helpful. So,
And you'll know it when you say it
Yeah.
and you're in
Yeah.
that place.
but
You
see,
can be out here talking, but when you have that helpful
you know it.
thing, you feel it
Yeah.
inside of you, and it's so
Right.
it's there, right?
Right, but I want to make the point that there's no perfection here. Okay? There's no like, I don't wait. I mean, I'd wait the best I can, but sometimes I just can't wait. So I say something, and I know that something is 90%. It's not quite right. It's not the click. but I just go ahead. Because ultimately I'm playing and I'm doing the best I can, and it's there's a when you have a rapport with a client, they forgive you. They do, because they know you're doing the best you can. They know that you're trying to help. They know your goodwill and well-meaningness, okay? So, yeah, it's okay, if you're just, what I call it is I'm doing blah, blah, blah. And I hear myself, blah, 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 blah. But I know I'm going to come around, I'm going to get the click, and then it's going to be really dynamic and good for both of us. Yeah.
And the click is a thought too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean,
It's an insight, yeah. Yeah.
It must be.
Has to.
It must be.
well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, there's no getting it. There's no 100%. There's no perfection.
No.
Like, it's a guide.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I'll tell you, the craziest story. Because you can't figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
I remember one time having a session and going home and saying to George, I was brilliant. I was so articulate. I was such in a feeling. It was so good. George says, well, how did the client do? I said, he got nothing. And then I remember going home and saying to George, oh, I can't believe I had my foot in my mouth, and I was just like, I couldn't seem to say it right, and it was just a horrible session. George said, well, how'd the client, and I mean this, I'm not exaggerating. And George said, how'd the client do? I said, he did great. He had an amazing insight that really, really helped him. Go figure. Go figure. And that's when I realized it's like I was totally off the hook. It's like I just show up and do the best I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It's
You
so
just show up and
true.
do the best you can.
And if it comes from here,
It's the best you can.
Yeah.
And part of it's,
Yeah.
and you don't know what it is. You never know what it is that's going to make the difference to the client.
and the people you think get it the least, get it the most. But if it comes from a place of love, they'll eventually get it. I feel like that all the time. If you come from the right place, from within, and your intention is pure and good, they know.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I think I'm trying to make this point, is that you want to take the limits off of your thinking with regard to what you can do and say.
I don't do anything. I just show up and be present and love them.
There you go.
And then it all just falls into place. And some clients are harder to love than others.
Those difficult ones.
It's a borderline.
Deviant. Criminal thinking. Deviant.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Who you?
Suggestions for how you can help trainees that are in school that are still learning other therapies learn the principles better, faster.
You mean that are in dual relationships?
That, that's, I think, it is my struggle lately. Trying to teach trainees the principles and have them understand them, that have them contaminated daily at the university, getting their degrees and having to, learn the other theories because they have to get their degree, but then come to us and, that's all we practice are the 3Ds. And then not, try to get them, they're trying, but they're just, some of them just aren't grasping them. And, trying to spoon feed them is really difficult. It gets frustrating. Because you want them to get it, but they just don't. You want to make them have that insight, but you just can't make them have that insight.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
It gets really frustrating.
Well, I just think that it's great that they're coming to you that early in their career. And they heard something, that's why they're coming. That's why I continue to show up,
Yeah.
Because I heard something. So I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I think maybe what might be helpful is that the school is dealing with the form of what the principals create. So they've made approaches to deal with what has formed. And what you're trying to help your trainees see is what's before that form. You're pointing them to the spiritual nature of that form. Whereas graduate school's talking to them about how to intervene on the form. See? Already formed thoughts. How do you help somebody with thinking? You're helping them see there is something that exists before that happens. And that's all people need to know. See? So that's how you might be able to help them. So when they go to the classes, they're learning the experts' ideas about what's already been formed by the principals. And what they're waking up to with you is that there is something that exists before all that form that their schooling is talking about. So I think that could be very helpful to them. And they might be able to come to ease about that and see that their learning is to try to get more of a feel for the spiritual nature of what's behind all the approaches they're learning at school. See? Maybe that'll help them. Yeah. But I want you to appreciate that you want to see that they've heard something and they're coming to you to they're coming to you to hear that. And all we're doing really, all I'm doing is pointing people to the spiritual nature of their experience. How thought and consciousness create the experience they're having. And today, Linda and I are just talking about the power that allows you to share that. And maybe share it in a way that really impacts the person or is right for them. And that's all we're talking about. But really, my job is to point people toward where that experience comes from. And that's what the trainees, so early in their development, could get so... it would be wonderful for them to see that. I remember I was asked to do a talk to a county psychological association. And I called Sid and told him. And he said, tell him it's spiritual. Tell him it's spiritual. And I'm saying, well, what does that mean? How am I going to tell psychologists it's spiritual? And I was telling Dickon about this, and it came to me, well, go for it. So I called it the spiritual understanding of psychological functioning. And they turned people away. And then Sid wanted to speak, so he came in and spoke for an hour, pointing people to the spiritual nature that's behind what all of them were working on. They were working in the form. People came up in tears. People wanted to know more. See? So if you point people, your trainees, to, that's all this is about. That there is something that exists that we cannot grab, but it's really what is creating everything else. That'll help them a great deal.
I guess we have time for one more, yeah.
Hi, I've been listening with the ears of a client more than a practitioner, because I've done time. And
You've done time.
I paid my dues.
Oh, okay.
And I just wanted to say that the times that my therapist has been stopped in her tracks and hasn't had an answer and hasn't cleverly said, whoa, that's a good question, but has sincerely said that, it increased my connection to her so much.
Yeah.
And the humanity connection
Yeah.
is right there. And I felt honored that I had said something that she didn't have an answer for. So that was worth pondering. Or I don't, I would say just don't be afraid of not having the answers.
Yeah.
Because that can actually solidify your relationship with them of trust. And the other thing is just a gift that, because I too have had impatience in my practice. I heard an acronym that when I get an explosive laugh, then I realize, I better remember that one. But the acronym is WAIT, and it stands for Why Am I Talking? So it has helped me enormously be patient with people.
Well, thank you for sharing the human feeling of you and the therapist, you and your coach or whatever, connecting, feeling the connection, and the human feeling of that. That's what it's about.
So,
think it's
are we done?
Yeah, I think we are. It's like past. Pardon me? Pardon me?
We don't want to leave.
Okay, who's got another question? Okay, let me tell you this. They have snacks. Now, what do you want to leave? Linda, this is beautiful. I just want to say I just love talking with you. Oh, man.